You never quite know when things are going to get rough out there on the water, but all you can do when it happens sometimes is roll with the punches, just like some of the things we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to the South China Sea, where tensions have finally escalated into a little more than just tensions. We've reported on this several times, as the Chinese Coast Guard and the Philippine Coast Guard have had several close encounters in the region over the past few months, but many of you have probably heard the saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Well, that's finally happened in this situation. After both Coast Guards have made several close interdictions at sea, all of a sudden we now have two collisions between Coast Guard vessels in one day. The first of the two incidents can be seen in these images here, and Philippine authorities are saying a Chinese Coast Guard ship carried out dangerous blocking maneuvers, causing it to collide with a smaller Philippine Coast Guard vessel seen in the images here. But of course, China's claimed that it's the Philippine vessel's fault and has released its own images showing this scene. If you followed the story at all, over the past several months there have been many close calls between the Philippine Coast Guard and the Chinese Coast Guard, as there's a major dispute going on over territorial lands in the South China Sea. With both countries claiming these lands, of course China has responded as well. China said the Philippine ship seen in the images was trespassing in the waters that's called the Nasha Islands, prompting the Chinese Coast Guard to intercept the vessel in accordance with the law, resulting in a minor collision. China also went ahead and pointed the finger back at the Philippines on the second incident as well, with the Chinese Coast Guard claiming that the Philippine vessel purposely provoked trouble and reversed its course, causing a collision with the Chinese vessel. These incidents have been occurring more and more frequently over the past several months, and one thing's for sure, this is probably not the end of it. Fortunately, in this situation though, even with the two collisions in one day, nobody was injured. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to Florida, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago when the U.S. Coast Guard Air Station Clearwater received an emergency call of a 58-foot sailing vessel reporting that it had sustained a full loss of power. This incident occurred approximately 44 miles south of St. George Island. The Coast Guard quickly jumped into action, launching one of their rescue helicopters to the scene. Upon arrival on the scene and assessing the situations due to the rough sea state and of course lines and rigging on the sailing vessel, it was determined the best course of action was to actually have the crew disembark the vessel so the Coast Guard could do a water extraction of the crew versus trying to pull the crew off of the boat. Fortunately, in this situation, the Coast Guard was able to successfully get everybody out of the water, into the helicopter, and back to the mainland with no injuries. The Coast Guard reminds you, if you're going offshore, always make sure you have the proper equipment with you when you go, such as an EPIRB or a personal locator beacon. This takes the guesswork out of trying to find your vessel, as it will send a signal directly to emergency services, allowing the Coast Guard to be able to pinpoint exactly where you are so they can quickly get there and save your life if needed. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to North Carolina, where this was the scene just a few days ago when the luxury sailing catamaran Moondragon, a 60-foot yacht, encountered rough seas approximately 140 miles off the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina. The crew found themselves sailing in 35-mile-an-hour winds with 11 to 12-foot seas. The sea state actually broke two hatches on the boat, causing catastrophic flooding. An emergency signal was sent, and the U.S. Coast Guard launched a plane from Elizabeth City, which quickly found the partially sunken yacht. A Coast Guard rescue helicopter was sent to the scene to water and rescue the 4 crew members who were on board the vessel. Fortunately, all 4 crew members were rescued without injury. This vessel actually was returning to its charter port after just showing a visit at the Annapolis Boat Show, so if you were at that show, you may have been one of the last people to get a shot to actually go on this boat. And speaking of boat shows, that will be the next thing that makes the boating news this week, as the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show officially starts today. It is one of the largest boat shows in the world. If you're interested in boating or want to see what's new in boating, I highly recommend you come down and take a look. We'll probably post several videos over the next week or so of boats and things that we see while we're down at the show as well. And speaking of us being at the show, have you ever thought about taking your vessel to the Bahamas? Well, here at Flibs, we actually host a seminar on how to do that. So Thursday, October 26th and Friday, October 27th at the seminar booth in the Convention Center at 11 a.m. both days, we'll be hosting a seminar on how you can take your vessel over to the Bahamas from Florida and also get an opportunity to sign up and join us on one of our trips. If you're going to the show and you haven't purchased your tickets yet, go ahead and go to the website and you can use the promo code SETSAIL SAIL10, and that will save you 10% off your tickets. We look forward to seeing you guys there. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. And if you haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button.